from Columbia in high definition. This is WIS News 10 Awareness.
They determined that no probable cause exists to file any charge against Officer Wilson and returned a no true bill on each of the 5 indictments.
The grand jury has spoken. Not enough evidence to build a case against Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for Awareness. I'm your host, Megan Norman. The decision delivered on a Monday night sent sparks flying, further fueling the tension that already exists. Cars set on fire, buildings burned to the ground, looting. President Barack Obama, understanding the anger, called for a tempered reaction. Michael Brown's family called for peace.
If you do anything to harm others, you're on your own side. You're not on Brown's side. We are on the side of Michael Brown to fight for what is right. Don't lower those standards.
We need to recognize that the situation in Ferguson speaks to broader challenges that we still face as a nation. The fact is, in too many parts of this country, a deep distrust exists between law enforcement and communities of color.
There were nonviolent protests across the country, but many still struggle with the grand jury's decision and question if justice has been served. We certainly don't have all the answers, but this morning we are looking deeper into Ferguson, but from an outside perspective. How do we process what has happened? What lessons can we learn? And what do we teach our children? Joining me now is Joe McCullough, a defense attorney in Columbia and a former prosecutor, South Carolina NAACP President Dr. Lonnie Randolph Jr., Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott, and Bishop Eric Freeman of the Meeting Place Church in Columbia. Thank you all for being with me this morning. Thank you. Now, Joe, I'm going to start with you as a former prosecutor. Can you explain to us the process of finding probable cause and how difficult or not that is?
Well, in law school, our criminal professors said you can indict a ham sandwich. And as a former prosecutor, I've presented hundreds, if not thousands, of cases to grand juries. It's a closed shop, so the prosecutor gets to present whatever he wishes or she wishes to present and to make recommendations all behind closed doors. And I think here this prosecutor, Mr. McCullough, no relative of mine, indicated in his pretty expansive speech about what was presented and the methodology he used here. He said he presented all sides of the case, and that's a good thing, but apparently different from his past consistent practice. Right. So I think that stuck out to people and commentators. There's a concern about why, in this case uniquely, he would use a method different from his previous 20 years. So right. The problem with these grand jury proceedings is there's no record. South Carolina does not permit the tape recording of the transcription of grand jury proceedings. We perhaps should look at that. We also do not require all sides of the case to be presented, so it still is left to the sole unfettered discretion of the prosecutor to present whatever they wish.
Do you think he did his job adequately or sufficiently?
Well, I've not reviewed this evidence extensively. I don't like to be a Monday morning quarterback, now a Tuesday morning quarterback, but I think you have to wonder, given the evidence and witnesses, you have to wonder how a probable cause hurdle was not gotten over. I mean, there is a concern there. McCullough, in his speech or his statement, said he made 2 very good points. Body cameras on police would have been helpful, very helpful in this incident. Some of our departments in South Carolina have that. And secondly, in this case, his department records statements of witnesses. Very important. So I think all of that can now be released. It's a closed case from that sense after the federal authorities deal with it. And then the public can make their own decision.
Now, certainly from all of this, a lot of racial tensions have been maybe reignited. And on social media, we saw hashtags Black Lives Matter as well. Do you think, Dr. Randolph, this decision was a message or a verdict saying that Black lives don't matter?
Well, it depends on who's interpreting it and what they're looking for in the decision. Unfortunately, there are certain agencies within South Carolina. I don't have to go outside of South Carolina that they don't respect. I don't want to use the word life, but they don't respect the process in doing an investigation or even making an arrest of persons of color. There are persons of color that receive what I call inhumane treatment from certain agencies. Fortunately, that number is low. But if you're the victim of that type of abuse, it's 100%. So there are cases that training and things of that nature, and of course, the big picture is that whoever leads the department sets a standard. I can identify several right here that we've had problems with over the years. And guess what? We still have problems with them today in how citizens are treated in a fair, just, and respectable manner.
Bishop Freeman, do you agree with that?
Well, I think that certainly I believe that both of the observations have been incredibly insightful. Our president has spoken quite helpfully concerning how lives are valued and some of the differences in it. I think to expand the argument a bit beyond Ferguson, when we see Tamir Rice, 12-year-old boy who was shot and killed in Cleveland, when we see Kai Gurley, a young man in his apartment coming down a stairwell, shot and killed in New York, when we see John Crawford III, who was shot in a Walmart in Beaver Creek, Ohio. And then right here in South Carolina, see LeVar Jones, who was shot while pumping gas. Fortunately, he lived to tell. It does at least raise a concern of a pattern of behavior. One of the things that I think is important in this discussion is while we do acknowledge that there are certain things that need to be investigated, our prosecutor even pointed out some of the distinctions as far as how the case was presented before a grand jury or for indictment. Those are absolutely necessary, but I think it's a both and. I do think that at the pavement level, we need to be sitting with our young people, giving them tools so that if they're put in a situation where perhaps they're being handled inappropriately, they can live to tell and give time for the system to heal or for the system to work.
And Sheriff Lott, I want to bring you into our discussion. Dr. Randolph talked about the heads of agencies sort of dictating behavior. And what is your policy or protocol, or how do you instruct your deputies to handle situations similar to this and interacting with the community?
You have to build a relationship with the community, and your department has to reflect the community that you serve. So I think a lot, though, falls on the voters and those who select police chiefs and the voters select a sheriff. Right. You know, they have to look at them and say, is this someone we want? Is this someone who has the same beliefs that we do? Dr. Randolph and I talk quite often about how the mission of the NAACP is the same mission of the Sheriff's Department. That's to treat everybody equally and with respect. And if the head of the agency believes that, then the agency is going to act that way. Right. So a lot of it goes back to the head of the agency and what their beliefs are, and the officers are going to follow them. And
would you say your department does reflect the community it serves?
Yeah, it does. And we've made the doors open to everybody, all minorities to come in. So our department reflects the community. We have a very diverse community in Richland County, so we have a very diverse sheriff's department also. That helps in building a relationship. But just the fact that you'll talk to someone, you'll listen to someone, and you'll open up your heart, your minds, and your ears to listen to people goes a long way in building a relationship that will prevent some of the issues that they have in Ferguson. Ferguson didn't start when Michael Brown got shot. Ferguson started a long time before that. That was just the final spark that set off the explosion.
Do you think you have procedures and protocols in place to avoid a Ferguson-type situation from happening here?
I think we do. I think we have a relationship with the community that we've developed over the years, but we also have policies that's going to prevent something from happening that that's happening out in Ferguson. And we've built that relationship with the community. We have a Citizens Advisory Council, and we've had it for many years. It allows citizens, a group of citizens that comes in, reviews our policy and procedures, they review all the complaints that we have, we review our shootings. They give me the perspective of a citizen. They have a big say-so in what we do at the Sheriff's Department. We're the only agency in the state that does that, and I can't understand why nobody else does it. You know, law enforcement shouldn't keep secret what they do. We work for the community. We work for the citizens. They should be able to have input and a say-so what we do.
Right. Well, we are just getting started here, so please stay with us. After the break, we'll be continuing our conversation about moving our communities forward. Welcome back to Awareness. Let's get right back to our panel discussion. Sheriff Lott, I want to pick back up with you. President Barack Obama, as we heard, talked about an issue of distrust between police and the public in certain areas in many states across the country. Do you think there is an issue of distrust within South Carolina, within Richland County?
I don't think so in Richland County, because we've made a concentrated effort to build a relationship with our minority communities. Again, very diverse communities. We have officers that reflect those communities, and they're out there every day building that relationship. We don't wait to have a critical incident and then try to build a relationship. We've done it over the years, and we work on it every single day. So I don't see the issues here that I see in other parts of South Carolina and the United States, but they do exist. They do exist.
And would you say you're transparent with all the investigations that happen?
Yeah, very much so. And that's one thing I was critical about Ferguson, was that they were not transparent. They did not give the community any information about what had happened. And when you don't give information out, the citizens demand it from somewhere. And what happens then? You get the wrong information. And then that causes rumors and that causes problems. So we try to get up front and put out the basic information as quick as we can so the citizens know. But again, the Citizens Advisory Council, a group of citizens, which includes Dr. Randolph, he's on that committee, come in and they view everything. They see it all. There's no secrets whatsoever. They see it. They become our messengers in the community. This is what really happened. So we try to be as transparent as we can.
Well, let's talk about moving forward, and what are we supposed to be teaching our children about what happened in Ferguson?
Well, Megan, I also want to kind of be the choir to the preaching of the sheriff here. As a local pastor, I've seen firsthand the efforts that have been made specifically by our sheriff's department to reflect our community. And so part of our instruction to our youth, we're able to do it because of a relationship with the sheriff's department and with the officers who aren't even members of our church. But literally there in my phone, I pick up and call if our we have a student that is in trouble, our student is having difficulty. On multiple occasions, I have officers in my phone who have reached out and said, here's my number. I call, and then they come in and sit with us so that we can help our students to learn how to navigate difficult situations. And that's a big step in the right direction.
So they're seeing a positive relationship that you have with law enforcement,
there
so that you're encouraging them to do the same.
That's exactly right. And I think vice versa. And so the student is having a positive perception of the officer, and officers are getting a healthier understanding of the students. And those types of relationships create a context for us to be able to navigate difficult moments and everyone to be responsible and to come out being held accountable, but justice being able to move forward.
Right. Well, accountability is important, but also I think just the nature of consequences, because there are consequences to everyone's actions, officers' actions and the subject's actions. Right. So when a subject is approached by police, what should they do? Comply?
Right. You're not going to win an argument with a law enforcement officer on the street. You know, if you feel like you've been wrong, there's procedures in place to address it later, and that's what. But they won't go to you later unless they feel like they trust law enforcement that you're going to do something about it, and that's what we've tried to demonstrate to the community. Is one of our officers has done something wrong, we're going to take some very swift action on them to make sure that they don't do it again, or if they've crossed that line that is illegal, that they get arrested, not just fired, but they get arrested. You know, they're held to the same standard. They have to follow the same laws. So if a deputy sheriff violates the law, then he or she's going to be arrested. Right. And when the community knows that, they trust you, then they're going to come to you. But we have to teach our young people, you have to comply on the street. There's no reason to try to get in that physical confrontation.
Hostility is not going to
it's not going to do anything but escalate the situation, and then it's going to put you in the wrong. When you're the victim, just let it go, address it later, we'll handle it.
Right. Dr. Randolph, I want to ask you a little bit about the topic of institutional racism and its role that you think may or may not have played in this entire case, from the beginning to now the protests and the aftermath.
Well, for us to sit here and deny that racism is still a major force in American society today would be just a lie, because it still is. I'm reminded of the speech that W.E.B. Du Bois gave September issue of the Atlantic Monthly in 1902, when he stressed, I mentioned then, that the problem of the 20th century was the problem of the color line. Well, here we are, 102 years later, 112 years later, and race is still a problem. Unfortunately, we've come to think that because our football teams and our basketball teams are integrated, that isn't it nice that we get along this way? Well, it ain't nice, because the truth of the matter is the issues that matter most in life, educationally, the state, 22 years in the courts for the last 22 years to give black children a decent education in South Carolina. How can you not understand that that is damaging to those young people? What other reason is there other than race? So we don't talk about it. It's going to just go away. All the other problems that we face in this country, in this state, we find a way to make it so that we can address them. But race is the big elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about because we are afraid of what may come out. Well, tell the truth. Sure. And racists are sick people. They have an emotional problem that needs to be counseled. They need help. And we don't do a good job of doing that. And I'm disappointed in adults, because when we see, particularly from young children, their response, they're doing nothing more than imitating what they see us do.
Well, and that's why I think forums like this are really important, so we can really get to the root of the matter. And I want to thank you all very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll be right back. Welcome back to Awareness. I am now joined by two USC juniors who have been closely following the fallout from Ferguson. Jaquan Irby, president of the USC chapter of the NAACP, along with executive board member Carly Wells. Thank you both for being with me this morning. I want to play a quick soundbite for you from Brian Williams.
Of the five of you, how many of you feel judged? How many of you feel feared on site when people see you? Show of hands. How do you think you're viewed by the world, the outside world, versus who you know you are?
I know I'm a good individual, and I have all intentions on being great and being a good person in life, but sometimes I feel like people are scared of us, you know, just off of the statistics.
Scared of them just because of the statistics. Now, those are some adolescents from Missouri. What is your reaction to that? Do you feel similarly? Do you feel like people fear you when you're walking down the street?
I mean, I don't think that as a black female I have it necessarily as hard as, say, Jaquan would, but I definitely hear from friends of mine that they find themselves in situations where they see the fear in people's faces. They see people cross the street.
Clutch their handbag tighter or something
Exactly,
like that.
exactly. And so for me, it hurts to hear, because these are my friends, my family, people in my life who are being feared just because of the color of their skin.
Jaquan.
Even on campus, sometimes I feel that way. Just walking around campus at night, because I'm always involved doing something. If I'm walking behind someone, I notice that they speed up. And just by me walking.
You think it's because you're black? It's because you're black?
Must be.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the movement that you guys have brought to campus. So we have some video of the blackout as it relates to the Ferguson protest. So why did you feel compelled to bring that movement to campus?
Something had to be done. We all were in a group me And it started that way, just discussing the verdict. And Carly, she was like, well, we have to do something. So within 45 minutes, we had our movement at the Horseshoe at 10:30 that night. Then it was like, it has to go beyond Ferguson. So we started up the blackout, and we had that yesterday.
And what are some lessons you personally are taking away from what we're seeing in Ferguson?
I mean, I think the number one thing that for us at least has been the power of young people. Our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents have worked so hard to get us to the point where we are today as far as race relations. But if we've learned anything from Ferguson, things aren't over. We have so much further to go, and it's up to our generation to make that difference, to see how much further we can progress, and just to try to make a difference and be the change. So,
Jaquan, are more movements to come?
Yes, we're working on planning more movements and more different programs. We have to educate our young people. Even though I'm young myself, but it's a generation after me. We have to educate them and make sure that they're aware of the facts and not just the hearsay. So USC, we're planning different events for the upcoming so that we're able to go beyond Ferguson.
And keep this moving, keep it alive. Well, Jaquan and Carly, thank you so much for being with me this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with a final thought. We need to teach our children and remember as adults that our actions are connected to consequences, good or bad, and we must hold each other accountable. Let's continue making progress by talking with each other, listening to each other, and living in peace. Every life matters. We'd like to thank all of our guests this morning. Until next time, I'm Megan Norman. This is Awareness.